Excellency Ambassador Mayurpas, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the Kingdom of Netherlands, Coordinator of Political Section, Ms. Juliana Maha, speakers from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, the United Nations, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or otherwise known as the Opcw, and the International Court of Justice, or otherwise known as the ICJ, fellow Indonesian students, present here and online in the Netherlands, Indonesia, and wherever you are, welcome to the webinar on Working and Internship Opportunities in International Organization, presented to you by the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia, in cooperation with Indonesian Students Associations in the Netherlands. My name is Aileen Chan, and I will be moderating for today's event. Before we begin, I would like to read today's program. Firstly, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the Kingdom of Netherlands, HE Ambassador Mayurpas, will convey his opening remarks. After that, we will listen to the presentations by our four distinguished speakers, followed by question and answer session. The session will be guided by our moderator of the day, Mr. Rifo Reskiri Arana. Then we get to wrap up and close our session. So without further ado, I would like to invite the ambassador to give some words as an opening. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Selamat sore dari Den Haag. Mr. Marlijn Anghat, Head of Talent Acquisition, Opcw, Mr. Faris Quino, Head of Human Resources, International Court of Justice, Ms. Karina Ratnamurti, Acting Deputy Director, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Indonesia, Ms. Geneva Damayanti, Associate Public Information Officer, UN Headquarters, New York, Indonesian student in the Netherlands and in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar Working and Internship Opportunities in International Organization. This event is held by Embassy of Republic of Indonesia in the close cooperation with the Indonesian Association in the Netherlands, PPI. Firstly, I would like to convey my highest appreciation to the speakers for their time to be with us virtually despite of your busy schedule. I'm proud to inform you that as of today, there are 100 Indonesian students who have registered their participation in this webinar. The students come from various universities in the Netherlands and also in Indonesia. Also present with us today are 20 students from Indonesian Students Association, Groningen chapter. I hope that this proves the eagerness of the student to know more about internship and work opportunities in international organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is an advocate of multilateralism, an active member of international organizations. Today, Indonesia is a member of 200 international organizations. However, Indonesia itself still has limited representation in international organizations. According to data from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in 2019, there are 194 Indonesian citizens working in international organizations. The organizations in which they are work are, among others, UN Headquarters in New York in Geneva, World Health Organization, ASEAN, Food and Agriculture Organization, and International Atomic Energy Agency. In the Netherlands, international organization, the embassy's current report shows that there are only 2 Indonesian citizens working. That is one in international residual mechanism for criminal tribunals, and in another in common fund for community. Indonesia considers representation in international organizations as a great importance. Representation is a fundamental norm of international organizations. However, the lack of representation of professionals from developing countries, particularly in decision-making bodies, is one of the key challenges faced by the concerned developing countries. Indonesia and perhaps the developing countries still lack representation in international organizations. In taking internship, lack of funds seems to be one of the main reasons why students from developing countries are seemingly discouraged to take their chances. Another possible factor seems to be the lack of resources to access the opportunities provided by international organizations. It is also one of the reasons behind the convening of this event. Through this event, we would like to expose and introduce career opportunities in international organizations to Indonesian students. We would also like to identify obstacles faced by students and professionals from developing countries in taking internship or work in international organization and how to tackle this issue. Today's webinar is blessed with the presence of speakers from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Indonesia to the Hague-based organization, namely Opcw and AICG, and also Indonesian citizens working in UN headquarters in New York. From MOFA, Indonesia, we expect to hear about Indonesian working in international organization, namely how many other challenges they face and what is the effort of the government of Indonesia to increase Indonesia's representation in international organization. From the Hague-based organization, we want to hear introduction about your organization program to increase the representation from developing countries, work and internship opportunities for Indonesian students in your organizations, and challenges faced by professional students from developing countries to work or taking an internship in your organization, and what has been done to tackle it. From Indonesian working in international organization, we want to hear from you regarding your experience, opportunities, and challenges on working in international organization. What advice can you give to students and professionals who want to take internship or working in international organization? Allow me to reiterate to all participants that today is a rare opportunity for us all and to ask anything and everything regarding working and internship opportunities in international organization. I call for an active participant from everyone here to enrich our discussion. We want to increase Indonesia representation in international organization. Hopefully, after this event, students can have a better view on the prospect of working or taking an internship in international organization. I urge Indonesian students who have interest in international affairs of all issues to try and apply work or take internship in international organization. Kepada adik-adik pelajar yang saat ini sedang menempuh pelajaran baik di Belanda maupun di Indonesia, seperti sudah saya sampaikan, ada 200 organisasi internasional yang kita saat ini menjadi member. Tapi konsen kita adalah sangat sedikit warga negara Indonesia yang bekerja di badan internasional tersebut. Kita membayar cukup banyak kontribusi kepada organisasi internasional tersebut, dan dalam kesempatan ini izinkan saya untuk menghimbau teman-teman mahasiswa profesional, adik-adik, untuk mungkin bisa mempertimbangkan bekerja di organisasi internasional. Ini adalah salah satu peluang besar yang harus kita manfaatkan. Kondisi kerjanya cukup baik, kehidupannya cukup baik, cukup prestisius, dan cukup menantang di organisasi internasional tersebut. Jadi, jadikanlah kesempatan ini untuk tahu lebih banyak agar teman-teman mahasiswa, pelajar dapat memahami bagaimana kerja di organisasi internasional. Ya. Lastly, I convey my highest appreciation to all speakers and participants who have ensured the success of our event today. I hope that today's webinar will be beneficial for all students in the Netherlands and in Indonesia. With this, I now have the distinct honor to officially open our event today. Thank you. Terima kasih.
And without further ado, I'm giving the floor to Mr. Rachel. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Alien, as the master of ceremony for this today event, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon for participants who's currently in the Europe, and good evening for those who is currently in Indonesia. His Excellency Ambassadors Mayarfas, ladies and gentlemen, now we go to the main session of today's event. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Rachel Reskiriandana, currently a master student in Erasmus University, Rotterdam, majoring strategic management. And also, I'm the currently Secretary General of the Indonesian Students Association in the Netherlands. It is my pleasure to be a moderator for this event on working and internship opportunities in international organizations. This event is consisting of 4 presentation sessions and 2 Q&A sessions. The speakers are Ms. Geneva Damayanti from the United Nations, Mr. Merlin Gore from Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Mr. Faris Quinio from the International Court of Justice, and Ms. Karina Ratnamurti from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. For the speakers, welcome to this event and thank you for spending your time with us. And also, I would like to ask everyone for their kind understanding for Ms. Geneva Damayanti as one of the speakers. She can only be with us for an hour, so she will be the first speaker to take the floor, and the Q&A session, the first Q&A session shall immediately follow. The rundown is, the first speaker is Ms. Geneva Damayanti, followed by Mr. Merlin Anggatgau from the Opcw, and then Mr. Faris Quino from the International Court and Justice, and Ms. Karina Ratnamurti from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. For the e-certificates and the digital attendance, please check our live chat for a separate link. And also, I would like to inform the online participants that you can convey your questions through the chat box of these sessions. Don't forget to indicate to whom the questions are addressed to. For our in-person participants who is currently in the Groningen, There's also a microphone stand where the audience can line up to give their questions while maintaining a safe distance. And so let's start to the first session from Ms. Geneva Damayanti. Let me provide a brief profile of Ms. Geneva Damayanti. Ms. Geneva Damayanti, she graduated with a Bachelor of Social Science from the University of Hong Kong and the Master of International and Public Affairs from the University of Hong Kong. She is currently the Associate Public Information Officer in the United Nations Department of Global Communications. Beforehand, she was also the Communication Officer in the United Nations University Projects Coordinators, Events, Outreach and Banking in the United Nations Environment Program, Regional Economic Justice Campaign Officer in Oxfam, Great Britain, Asia Regional Campaign and Policy Teams, Program Managers and International Outreach and Marketing from the University of Hong Kong. Without further ado, I give the floor to Ms. Geneva Damayanti. The screen is yours. Yeah, Ms. Geneva, can you please unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Great. First of all, His Excellency Ambassador Meyerfast, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia and to the Kingdom of Netherlands, fellow speakers, members of the Indonesian Embassy in The Hague, and Persatuan Pelajar Indonesia di Belanda. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to this session, and I'm excited to be able to share with you my experience working for the United Nations. Just a disclaimer at the outset, what I will be sharing with you today is based on my personal experience, and it does not reflect the views of the organization. And I will be happy to take some questions as well after my sharing. As introduced by Rifle, thank you so much. It's a very comprehensive introduction. My name is Geneva Damayanti, and I'm currently working at the Department of Global Communications at the UN headquarters. And the actual team that I'm working in is the Office of the Undersecretary General for Global Communications. And what I basically do is support the engagement and the activities of the Undersecretary General for Global Communications. I also support the department, overseeing the activities of the department, of their reports, and making sure that all the Department of Global Communications work are at highest quality and are delivered in a proper and timely manner. And what my department does is basically we tell the UN stories, we communicate UN ideals to the public, and not just telling the stories, but the most important thing is we try to get our audiences, including all of you here, to care about the issues of the United Nations that are in the United Nations agenda, and also mobilize action towards solving those issues. Day to day, I basically help the Undersecretary General to prepare talking points, background notes, do a little bit of research, conduct certain project, for example, on gender equality and empowerment of women, and integrate it to the communications of the United Nations, and many others. So I would like to share with you a little bit about how I got here. And also, I got a lot of questions on where to look for opportunities, challenges and benefits. And lastly, I would like to share with you some advice that I've been following for myself as well. So how I got here, as you've heard from a little bit from the introduction by Rifle, I actually started working at the UN through UN Volunteer. Well, maybe let me go back a little bit. Why do I want to work in the UN? From the very young age, I was very motivated in a project and work that help others in need, especially after experiencing and witnessing the state of my community And at the same time, I was studying in Singapore, and I thought, Indonesia has so much resources and so much potential, and I would like to somehow represent my country and making sure that Indonesia can be seen at the world stage and have a greater influence at the global stage. Those were actually my main motivator, and I thought working at international organization would be one way to realize that career aspiration. And I started working in an international office of my alma mater at the University of Hong Kong, or HKU. And I realized that it's a long way to get to the UN. And so I take it step by step. It's not a smooth journey as it might sound after you hear this. But first of all, I started as a UN volunteer, which was unpaid, intern, which was also unpaid. And I think this highlights one of the issue that Ambassador Meyer-Vaz highlighted earlier. I had to intern in New York for 4 months without getting paid. So there's a lot of sacrifice and efforts that need to be made in order for me to do that, right? And then I got the opportunity to be a consultant. And then eventually there is a UN Young Professional Program, which I came to know. And that's basically a recruitment program by the UN to increase their geographical representation, meaning they would like to have more citizens of their member states who are underrepresented in the UN. So Indonesia was part of it until I believe 2019 or 2020, and I took the exam in 2017, got the result almost a year later, and eventually within a few months, I was able to get an assignment in my current position right now in New York. So that's how I got here. And of course, there's a lot of steps to get there. And as I said, efforts that need to be made, but that's basically the outline. The next thing I'd like to share is where to look for these opportunities. And, sometimes you're here, you might need to know people from the inside, etc. But no, I actually just apply online. So the first thing I did, actually go to UN website, look at their organizational structure, and you can see how vast and complicated the UN system is. And you will see about 100 or more than 100 UN agencies, including WHO, WTO, UNICEF, etc., as well as their peacekeeping missions. And so it's a vast organization. And from there, what I did was basically go to their website, go to their career page, bookmark all those 200 or 300 organizations' career page. And literally every week I would go and open those pages and bookmark all of the opportunities that I could find. So it was a lot of work, but I think the key thing is, one is get organized to really understand the organizations and the system as a whole. So those two are the things that really got me started. And of course, I would like to highlight also some challenges. When we look for this opportunity, again, I brought again the lack of funding for students or even fresh graduates to try to have an internship that are unfortunately unpaid in some of the UN agencies. It was definitely a challenge. So if there is a way where we can put together some sort of funding or support for these students, that would be amazing, I think, and hopefully it will open up more opportunities for students and professionals who are interested working for the United Nations or for the international organizations. And in terms of challenges working at the UN or at the international organization itself, as you can imagine, there are 193 member states. I like to think of it, and there are two groups where there's member state and there is people like me, who's the staff, the international civil servant supporting member states and also supporting the cause, right? And you cannot please everyone, even though my personality is also like a people pleaser, but you can't please everyone. It's hard to get a compromise, among 193 countries. So you just have to come to terms to that, and also basically think a little bit about the bigger cause, and also understand there is some sort of bureaucracy that comes with such big organization. And I believe this also happens in other industry as well. And I really like what our second Secretary General, Doug Hammarskjöld, has said about the UN. The UN was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell. And I think that resonates with me about the importance of the existence of the international organization and multilateralism as a whole. And lastly, I just like to share a few advice and also, benefits of working in UN or international organization. First of all, I think you do get this sense of fulfillment of serving a greater purpose. And I think that also applies for, other career. What exactly is your purpose? That is for me. And also a sense of fulfillment of helping others and being a small part of a big system that tries to solve issues that we are facing. And practically, as I mentioned before, UN there are member states and there are staff. So you might want to think about whether or not you want to represent Indonesia as diplomats, where you work, in a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or as a international civil servant like myself, which, we're supposed to be impartial, basically. And then the next thing is to your language skills. Not just different kind of language, of course, UN has 6 official languages, English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, and Chinese, but also other languages. But in particular as well, also is English. And what I mean by English language is get familiar with the way the UN says about certain things, the terms, the sentences, the way it's structured, and the narrative, and that will really help you in interview or even in your day-to-day work once you're in the UN already. Do your research, and again, working for international affairs or international development is not just about the UN. It's a huge I'd say ecosystem. There is civil society that plays. As I was working in an NGO before, and we are still serving the same purpose and working with UN and other international organizations as well. So really, what is your calling? What is your motivation? And there's a long way to get there, and you can start maybe perhaps from like civil society, for example, or academia or NGO. So I think lastly would be your commitment to lifelong learning. And you need to find enjoyment in learning, because working in international organization, you're working in a very agile environment, I would say, and your work directly affects people, directly affects the beneficiaries. And if you stop learning, you will not be able to respond to global challenges, and so there should be, you should be able to, you should want to keep on learning every day and open up your mind and open up yourself to different kind of opportunities. So that's basically it. And I would just like to close by saying, again, look inside for your motivation. I think at the UN, we're really looking for that sincere motivation, what you want to do, what kind of cause that you want to serve, and what kind of issues that you would like to solve. And I will leave it at that. I will leave it at that and return it to the moderator.
Well, thank you, Ms. Geneva, for your super presentations about your experience in working in international organizations. And also thank you also for your valuable motivations for us, especially for us who's currently studying abroad, to be engaged in the international organizations. It must be very challenging yet rewarding. Yeah. And as informed in the beginning, let us proceed to the first Q&A sessions for Ms. Geneva. For those who want to ask the questions, you can raise your hands and I'll call your name, and yeah, just walk to the microphone and yeah, speak your question to Ms. Geneva.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you, Kak Geneva, for the amazing presentation. So I I kind of adore two things, your story and your name, because I think it's quite unique. I have two questions actually. So the first one is, what was the thought process that led you to decide to work in an international organization despite like maybe your background and other possibilities? Because I bet like there are many other pathways that you might choose back then. And what was like the thought process of finally deciding to work in an international organizations? And the second one is, how's New York? Are you living in New York right now? Yeah, I was wondering, did you romanticize the city, and how did you get by living in an unpaid internship and live in one of the best cities in the world? So yeah, that was my questions. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, so firstly, I would like to say hello to Geneva. That was a very super presentation, and I've been looking into job opportunities in the UN as well since last year. And I was just wondering, how is the application process of applying for an internship in the UN? And are there some tips for the people in here that would like to apply for a UN internship as well? Thank you.
Okay. Should I answer, or are we taking more questions?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this interesting and excellent questions. So first of all, about thought process, I might have mentioned a little bit earlier during my presentation, but basically, when I think about what kind of career I want to do, again, I look at what do I want? First of all, my motivation is I want to be able to serve others. I want to be able to help people. I get most job satisfaction, not even job satisfaction, from making others happy, being able to help others. And that's something I learn about myself as I go through this, job hunting process and understanding what my motivation is and what makes me happy. And secondly, the purpose. There are so many issues in the world, and I honestly was very motivated in the issue of education, because I was privileged enough to be able to get excellent education both in Indonesia and abroad. And I think education is the key to empower others. It opens up opportunities. And so I want to be able to work in this field. And thirdly, in terms of the type of work, I like to communicate. I like to connect people. I like to do outreach. So all of this thing is from self-learning what kind of person I actually am. And then fourth of all, when I was studying in international school, I was able to be involved in Model United Nations and truly get a firsthand, experience on what it's all about. I see some people being excited about UN. Yes, so all of this, and as I said, I really somehow wanted to represent Indonesia to, kind of make them have more influence in the world stage. All of this, adding all of this, the equivalent of that is working for an international organization. And so that is the thought process. And of course, I was quite istilah tergiur, I was very interested in, okay, you get to travel a lot in your job, you get to meet these senior officials, you get to really solve an issue, global issue. That's very enticing to me, and that's how I got to where I am, and that's how I got to the option of choosing this career. And in New York is amazing. This is actually my 10th move in 10 years. And I love being in a big city, and New York is really the melting pot of all cultures. In 2015, back then, yes, it was so difficult to be able to live in New York without getting paid. But this was a part of planning. So this is also a tips. I knew that if I want to get into the UN, internship is the first step. And I know that most of the UN internships are unpaid. And so after my bachelor, I worked for about 4 years. But in the first 2 years, I really tried to save up And even for my master, like I finance my own studies. So I really try to save up and use that saving to be able to work in New York. I try to find a lot of funding. There are some organization like I think US Asia Business Council or something like that, but somehow there is a lot of they didn't do that anymore, and there was just no funding opportunities at that time. I've searched everywhere, so that's how I tried to survive. And the third question is about application process for internship. As I mentioned, it's all online, and it really depends. It's not like a centralized process. So do look for what organizations or what issues, what teams that you want to work in, and then you will have to see what kind of whether or not there are internship opportunities. Sometimes there aren't, and especially in recent days, it might be more difficult. And apply to those. UN usually have its own forms, and there's also some sort of way that they're looking for in terms of how you present your information when writing, when filling in those forms, and also prepare for interview. And UN interview is actually it's quite straightforward. It's based on competencies, and you can find online, you can do your own research. There are competencies that UN are looking for from their interns or from their staff. And making sure you look at those competencies for each job opening. There are certain competency that they say, and make sure you could provide examples and really show prove and show the evidence that you can meet those competencies. The competency could be teamwork, organization skills, professionalism, technological awareness, etc. It really depends on the position itself. So yeah, I hope that also answers your second question.
Well, thank you, Ms. Geneva, for the answers from alien questions. We also see some questions in the box chat. The first one is from Nagulan. I will read the questions from him. Hi, Ms. Geneva. I would like to ask if there's any law field-based work available for fresh graduates in the United Nations. You can answer to his
Sure.
questions, actually.
Sure. So this is also based on my personal knowledge, and for law field work, yes, there is. We have Office of Legal Affairs, so they're normally looking for law graduates, and your title could be a legal affairs officer or associate legal affairs officers. There is also the Human Rights Office, and having law or legal background would also help. For fresh graduates, it is slightly difficult because I think the UN really look for expertise. So full-time employment could be more difficult, but you can start with internship in those offices.
Okay, yeah, it's the answers to Najina questions. And also we see someone's raising hand on the participants in the Zoom. It's from Amanda Chitra. You're allowed to unmute yourself and ask your questions to Ms. Geneva.
So yeah, thank you, Kak Revel. First thing, I would like to thank you too, and want to say hello to Kak Geneva. Thanks for sharing your inspiring story. Because personally, I almost watch How I Met Your Mother every day since I'm in senior high school until today. So New York is the biggest dream of mine, and you really inspire me. And the question that I wanna know more is during your journey, what keeps you going in the process and the motivation in believing that you will nail it? And the related with the second questions, as a young generation and in a young age, we tend to have a lot of interest and a lot of curiosity. And how can we know that this process is worth it or not? You know what I mean? And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda, for the questions. And Ms. Geneva, you're allowed to answer Amanda questions right away.
Okay, thank you. That's a really interesting question. It kind of makes me think about my journey. But what keeps me going, I think, again, it goes back to one, I want to prove myself that I can do it. I heard a lot about how a lot of thing that discourage people from getting their dream is there's this term kalah sebelum berperang, like you got this demotivated before you actually try. And I think that's something we need to get over, and trust, believe in ourselves that we can do it, and also take risk. I mentioned about like sacrifices that has been made, and yes, there's a lot of risk. For example, going to Geneva in Switzerland, and I wasn't sure if working in a environment program finance initiative, which I have no background of. I don't have background in environment or finance, whether I will be having difficulty, whether I'll like it, but I just take the risk anyway. And so taking risk, of course, it has to be calculated risk, right? We have to be reasonable about that too. And also never give up. Again, it's all about determination, I think. So at the end of the day, this thing keep me going. And again, it goes back to why I want to do this. I want to help others, and I just don't see myself working in other industry, I would say. All of this thing really kept me going. And the other thing that's very important is no matter what steps I took in my journey, it could have been, a one step backward, or it could have been one step forward. But what I try to do is making sure that there is one aspect within that new step that I take, which improve myself. So for example, if let's say, when I went to Geneva, I didn't quite like the job, but at least I get to learn French. So there is like a self-improvement aspect to it. So even if we thought it's a step backward, there should at least be something that you learn from that experience. And that keeps me going. And again, that trust in yourself. And yeah, nowadays, a lot of people have curiosity, a lot of different curiosity and, different ones. And I think that's fine. Like, I even now, like sometimes when I thought I achieved one of my biggest goal, one of my dream, I still don't know what will I do again, so it's a whole process. And no matter where you work in whichever industry, I think you will also feel this way, like what's next, and what if I do this instead of this, so just embrace that. I think that's a part of the continuous learning process that I mentioned earlier. And but the most important is you find not necessarily happiness, but a joy, like a feeling of joy in even the little task you do day to day. So that kept me going.
Well, thank you, Ms. Geneva, for the answers. It's been a really interesting discussions with you regarding the opportunities in the United Nations for working an internship. And I know that there are a lot of questions that the participants want to ask for Ms. Geneva, but unfortunately, she has to go now because of the time constraint and other appointment and schedule. I thank you, Ms. Geneva, for her presence on our event today, and wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for all the questions that come in, and also for the speakers, and also for KBRI and PPI for organizing this. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yes, and now it's time for us to go to the second session. From the second speakers, it's Mr. Merlin Angat of the OPCWY. Allow me to provide a brief background from Mr. Merlin Angat. Okay, Mr. Merlin Angat did his education in the Open University, majoring in industrial and organizational psychology, and also in the Royal Music Conservatory, The Hague. He is now the head of talent acquisitions in the organizations for the prohibition of chemical weapons, or widely known as OPCW. Okay, and for Mr. Marlin, the floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes to present, and following with the Q&A sessions from the participants.
Sure. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Really good to see you all. Thank you, Ambassador, for opening the floor. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you too. Yeah, so my name is Marlijn. I'm the head of talent acquisition at the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in The Hague. I'm going to try to share a few slides with you. The thing is, let me check how that's going to go down. Okay. Can I just check that you can see the presentation? Can somebody confirm?
Yes, we can see the slides.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. So what I wanted to do, just to give you a little bit of background about the organization, not everybody is aware what the OPCW does. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is basically the implementing body of the Chemical Weapons Convention. And it's our mission and our dream to have a world free of chemical weapons. In that sense, the organization is the most successful disarmament treaty at the moment, with almost 98% of the declared stockpiles destroyed. We're hoping to reach final destruction of chemical weapon stockpiles by 2024. So that would be a big milestone, actually. Having said that, there's a few main pillars that we have. One is to eliminate CW, as I just mentioned. It's also to prevent re-emergence, and with that you have to think about industry inspections. So we have inspectors from the organization based in The Hague, traveling globally to inspect chemical industry. We also try to respond to the use of chemical weapons in case this happens. Unfortunate, one has to say there has been a slight re-emergence over the last decade, as we've seen, but OPCW is really there to help everybody with these causes. Having said that, we do really want to strive to achieve universality in that we provide outreach programs to member states. On the one hand, to help them develop their chemistry, the chemical industry in certain countries, but also to ensure that it's all done in a peaceful manner. You may or may not have heard, the organization is also currently building the Chemtech Center for Chemistry and Technology in The Hague, which is really intended to be the hub for knowledge in terms of chemistry and specifically in relation to CW. I thought, and I hope this is not too boring for you, to give you a bit of a short background as to how we got to the Chemical Weapons Convention. Typically when we think about CW, we tend to think from the last century, World War I, where of course there was a major use of toxic chemicals. Mustard gas is one of the most commonly known in that sense, but it really goes back a long way. I think even the Byzantines have used arsenic phosphorus to keep the enemy away from them when they were fighting their wars on boats. That's a long time ago, to be honest. But through history, there's always been this sort of, mankind has always tried to find ways to enhance their weaponry, if you like, through chemistry, whether it was arrows with poisoned tips or bullets. And I think the latter, especially, was led actually to the first agreement in 1675, where both France and Germany actually agreed that they would not use poisoned tips on their bullets anymore. So that was actually the first mini step. it was followed by the Strasbourg Agreement a little bit later, where it was said, okay, we want to limit the use of chemical weapons. So these bullet points, and then beginning in 1899 and followed in 1907, there were the Hague Conventions, and there was actually more of a specific sort of wish from more parties than just two countries to say, okay, we really want to abstain from the use of chemistry in our warfare. Unfortunately, World War I came along, as I just mentioned, so that agreement was there, but wasn't really honored. Much later, in 1925, we had the Geneva Protocol, and there interesting to see is that both CW as well as biological warfare agents were combined, and it was agreed, okay, we really don't want to use this anymore in any war situation. The one thing, however, that was a big difference was that it was not prohibited to produce them or to keep stockpiles of chemical weapons or biological weapons. Now, decades have gone by until finally in 1993, separately, the Chemical Weapons Convention went into force. That was opened for signature, and in 1997, the OPCW started its work. So just a bit of brief history. We've come a long way to get to this convention. And it's really great to see that we've got so many countries that are committed to this. The OPCW currently has 193 member states, so we're almost reaching universality, but there's still work to be done. Now for you, as students, you might be interested, okay, what kind of opportunities are there in the OPCW? If you look at the organigram that I just decided to share, you see there's executive management around the Director General, where there's the Office of the Legal Advisor, where there's the Audit Office, the Office of Strategy and Policy. So this means roles in legal, in audit, in political science. We have the Secretariat for the Policy-Making Organs, and they basically help our member states in their meetings and the proceedings and the documents. And then below that, there's actually 5 main pillars. It's the Verification Division, which facilitates the verification regime. So this is mainly centered around declaration and chemistry. The Inspectorate Division, this is typically our inspectors that go out in the field. Usually these people have more of a chemistry background. They can also be chemical weapons experts. We've got the International Cooperations and Assistance Division. They really deal with the outreach programs to our member states. External Relations Division is more, you have to think about public affairs, but also dealing with countries on a more political level. And then last but not least, the Administrative Division that you have everywhere, who supports the entire organization with either HR, where I come from, or procurement, finance, you name it. So it's really quite diverse. And I always like to stretch that organizations like the OPCW are like a little village on their own. So there's so many different roles and things that are needed rather than just the chemistry part of the organization. So people that are interested can really find basically mostly everything in their niche. Of course, there are the STEM roles, the typical science-related roles that we have. But just to sort of give you an impression, it can be either political science as well, international relations, economics, law, public administration, you name it. So there's really a broad portfolio that is needed. How organizations are typically built, and I'm sure you know this already, but you've got the professional jobs that are internationally recruited professionals. You've got general services jobs that are locally recruited admin support. Although I have to say the latter is becoming a bit of a, one could almost say a bit of an old-fashioned way of looking at things. I mean, the people that work in general services are usually also people holding a master's degree in their field, and they can also work in finance and HR, what have you. But they're locally recruited. And in the end, it's support staff to the professional program. Now, in terms of entry opportunities, you would typically have the Junior Professional Officer program. For that, you would need 2 years of experience. There's, of course, the internships, which are getting increasingly popular, I have to say. We do receive a lot of applications from interns, especially There was an increase after the OPCW received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2013. We saw that we got more popular, to be honest, so that was kind of interesting to see, but expected. And then there's another way, for instance, to the United Nations volunteers, so-called UNV, which means you have to register with the UN volunteers and be part of their program. And sometimes we also tend to look there to find short-term solutions to hire somebody quickly on a temporary basis. Now, if you want to work with us, the process typically is really applying online. So all our vacancies are published online, and people have to apply online through to the form that is downloadable there. So you have to fill out all the information, and then it gets processed. And then there is quite a strict process in how we approach applications. Typically, the way it's done is that in first instance, we longlist people on the basis of the minimum criteria, and then we move forward through various stages. Sometimes it can be a pre-recorded interview that we start with. We can then have a written test. There can be a behavioral or psychometric assessment, and finally an interview. For interns, it's a little bit different in the sense that there will also be a pre-screening based upon eligibility. On our website, there's a clear outline of what the eligibility is. And at the same time, we're going to see, okay, based upon the interest that people share with us, so you can indicate, well, I'm interested to work in this or this department. We forward them to that relevant department, and they'll make a selection of who they want to bring on board as an intern. Some people do it straight away from the paper, and they might do a phone call. Some people prefer to have a follow-up interview by video conference to confirm who they want to pick for the internship. So it's a bit of a shorter program, if you like. The last thing that I thought sharing with you may be of interest, although it does focus on professional jobs to a large extent. And back in November last year, we did a webinar on how we hire at the OPCW. I think it's quite interesting. At least we've received fairly good feedback from a lot of people around the world, where we try to explain a little bit, again, how the process works, but also what we look for. There's one of our senior hiring managers, director of ICA, the International Cooperation and Assistance Division. For instance, she really addresses how she approaches looking at applications, but also how she approaches, reviewing the written test, and more specifically the interview, because a lot of times that is the thing where people have most issues with particular. I know that Geneva, she spoke about the competency-based interviewing. That's typically something that is very common in the UN and other agencies, and that's something that you kind of need to get used to. So how does that work? So we try to explain it there a little bit, but at the same time, maybe it's good to reiterate for you all that, especially also on the UN website, there's a lot of information on how competency-based interviewing works, what the framework looks like in their case, but it gives you a good idea of how to address these issues. Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank you for now for your attention. And I'll try and stop sharing this.
Thank you, Mr. Marlon, for your presentation. Yeah, it's very interesting opportunity for us international students to work or to have an internship in the organization of the prohibition of chemical weapons from various expertise, and also I'm really looking forward for your career webinar events. Yeah, and there's a slightly minor change due to the schedule in terms of efficiency. So the Q&A sessions will be all the Q&A sessions will be combined after all the four speakers presents. So after this, we'll have the third speakers and then the fourth speakers, and after that we'll enter in the Q&A sessions. Okay, so now we have the third speakers, Mr. Faris Quinio from the International Court of Justice. Now allow me to provide a brief background of Mr. Faris. Okay, Mr. Faris Quinio, he is currently the head of administrative and personal division at the International Court of Justice. In terms of education, he graduated from the University of Rennes twice, bachelor degrees and a master degrees, and from the San Jose State University. And also, he got his doctoral degree in the postgraduate degree at the doctorate levels in the international administrations from the University of Paris 1. Yes, okay, so Mr. Faris, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. First question, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Perfect. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. It is a pleasure, but also an honor for me to be able to talk to you and to share with you information on such an important topic. And I would like to thank Ambassador for organizing this event, Ambassador Mayarfas, and as well as the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, for giving me and other speakers this opportunity to share with you tips, but also valuable information, hopefully, about this international organization. I must say that it was through an event like this that I decided a long time ago to start to work with the United Nations. I was a student in France in a university, and there was a presentation from someone from the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs who came to talk about careers in international organization. And at that point, I realized that this is what I wanted to do. And years and after years, I kept trying to gain experience to apply. And it is, it is after this type of event that basically this idea came to me. So I can only value such initiative, and thanks again for organizing it. And I hope that you will find this information valuable. This being said, I will now go to share with you a small presentation. I hope you will find it interesting. Let me share with you my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm working at the International Court of Justice, and my name is Faris Quinio. I'm the head of the Administrative and Personnel Division. So basically, I'm dealing with everything regarding human resources, but I am also in charge of other administrative matters for the court. And I will explain to you a bit more about the International Court of Justice. And then I will give you some more information after that about work opportunities. But first, let me introduce to you, let me share with you some information about the International Court of Justice. It is the first and principal judicial organ of the United Nations. So when we talk about judiciary authority, the International Court of Justice is the highest court, the highest organ of the United Nations. It was established in 1945, so it is fairly old, and it is located at the Peace Palace in The Hague, in Netherlands. So you can see behind on the slide, you have a picture of the building. And this building is the seat of the International Court of Justice. This is where we are working. It's owned by the Carnegie Foundation. And if you happen to come to the Netherlands, I invite you to visit it. It's a very beautiful building. To get back to the court, it is part of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations. So there is the Security Council, the General Assembly, the Economic and Social Committee, and you have the International Court of Justice, and it's the only one that is not located in New York. So some of you talked about New York earlier. We are the only organs of the United Nations not located in New York. We are located in The Hague, as I indicated earlier. And another interesting aspect, and an interesting fact, is that the court is composed of 15 judges. So when we talk about the International Court of Justice, it is about these 15 judges, and they are elected for the term of office of 9 years by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Councils. And basically, for your information, every 3 years, there is a new elections, and the judges are elected for a period of 9 years. And in addition to the judges, you have then a registry. And basically, the registry is the administrative organ of the International Court of Justice. So the International Court of Justice, it is the 15 judges who have the judiciary power, assisted, supported by the registry, which is the administrative secretariat of the court. And last point that I want to mention at this stage is that we are working in 2 languages. We are working in English and in French. And I will get back to this at a later stage, because indeed it has an impact in terms of recruitment. Regarding the functions, what the court is doing, it's pretty simple. First, the International Court of Justice is settling, in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted to it by member states. Meaning that we have situations where member states have a conflict, they have an issue, and they decide to go to the court in order to solve this issue. So this is a very important task, as you can imagine. For instance, there could be issues about borders, or there could be issues between member states about the sea or a river between the 2 of them. And what is important is that only issues between member states can be submitted. An individual or a company or corporation cannot go to the International Court of Justice. Only member states can go to the International Court of Justice. And on the pictures on the slide here, you can see one of the hearings. On one side, you have one member state. On the other side, you have the other member states. And in front of them, you have the judges of the International Court of Justice. The second function is about giving advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by other United Nations organs or special agencies. Because we are the highest court of justice in the world, other UN organizations, the Security Council, the General Assembly can come to us and put to us a question of a legal nature. So we have a role in terms of providing advice as well. So these are the 2 main functions of the International Court of Justice. Let me now talk a little bit more about the registry. As I told you, we have 15 judges, but then beyond these judges, you have an administrative secretariat. And this administrative secretariat is accountable to the court alone. And it is headed by a registrar. who is assisted by a deputy registrar. And since the court is both a court of justice and an international organization, the tasks are not only the task regarding the administration of justice, but also tasks of an international secretariat. And in this regard, in this secretariat, you have 3 departments and 10 technical divisions, as well as secretaries to the members of the court. But in the next slide, I will give you more details about that. In total, with this department, with technical divisions, you have about 120 officials. So it's a very small organization. That's why we do not have so many work opportunities. We are a tiny organization. If you look at the Secretariat of the United Nations or other big UN entities, UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, these organizations have 15, 20,000 employees. We only have 120 staff members. So we are a very small organization. And all officials, all staff members, they enjoy the same privileges and immunities as members of diplomatic missions in The Hague. And they are subject to the staff regulations, which are basically the staff regulations of the United Nations. So we apply basically the same rule when it comes to how we manage our staff, how we manage our organizations. And the condition of employment, the salaries, the pensions, they are equivalent to the one of the United Nations officials based on the grade, based on the category of the position. And all the costs are borne by the United Nations. So every year, the General Assembly look at the budget, and they are the one allocated the budget to the International Court of Justice for the function, for the work of the registry notably. And I indicated to you that there are different departments and divisions. Basically, we have 3 departments and 10 divisions, and we have employees in each one of them, meaning that there could be employment opportunities in each one of them, and they could very much depend on your qualifications. So of course, we have a department of legal matters, but we also have a department of linguistic matters for translation or for revising documents. We have an information department to communicate about the cases, to communicate about the work of the court. Then you have my department, my division, which is the administrative and personal division. And we are basically the backbone of the organization in terms of organizing HR, organizing other administrative tasks. Then there is a finance division in charge of the budget, in charge of payment. There is a publications division because as a court, we publish a lot about the hearings, about the decisions, about the cases. There's a library with a lot of books about international public law, and some of them are very rare. They are only available here at the International Court of Justice. We have an archive, indexing and distribution division. So we have some experts in archiving because, as you know, and as I said, our cases, some of them dates back from 1945. Text processing and reproduction division, because we produce a lot of the documents. Information technology division, of course. We are working with technology, with computers, and they are dealing with that. And finally, the security and general assistant division in charge of the building. And lastly, secretaries for judges, because they work directly with the 15 judges. So we have these divisions with departments, and each one of them is responsible for a specific matter. So we have then opportunities, not only work opportunities, not only in legal matters, but we could also potentially have also work opportunities in one of these other fields. I will talk to you a little bit more now about work opportunities. I'm going to be a bit more concrete so you can understand a bit how it works when it comes to recruitment. I would say basically there are 4 options if you want to work for the International Court of Justice. The first one, and we talked already quite a bit about this, internship. It's one of the options, and as indicated earlier, it is sometimes the easiest option to start a career with the United Nations. Then we have a program called the Judicial Fellowship, and I will explain a bit more in detail what it is about. We have something else which is called law clerks who judges. And finally, I will give you after that some more general information about employment when it's not about these 3 programs or these 3 options. Let me start first with internship. It is indeed one very important way if you want to work with international organizations. I myself started as an intern almost 20 years ago. I started as an intern with the French Permanent Mission to the United Nations in New York. And after that, I did another internship with UNESCO in Cambodia. So as other speakers mentioned, it is indeed one of the best way to start to work with an international organization. And at the International Court of Justice, it is an opportunity for students and young professionals to put their knowledge and experience into practice under the supervision of an official of the registry. Given the size of the organization, as I indicated earlier, we can only accommodate a limited number of interns, around 10 per year. Depends, it could be sometimes 15, but it's a very small number. And as I indicated earlier, it is possible to do an internship in any department or division of the registry, depending on the needs. So you don't have to be a lawyer to work for the International Court of Justice or to do an internship with the International Court of Justice. If you have background in communication, or if you have studied archiving, or if you are knowledgeable about IT, you can be extremely valuable to the International Court of Justice as well. One aspect, and it is indeed some are unfortunate, internships are unpaid with the International Court of Justice. And indeed, this is an issue. It's not only the International Court of Justice, most UN entities, unfortunately, do not provide a payment or remuneration for internship. But what I can tell you, it is that gradually I can see that there is a trend for this to change. When I did my internship 20 years ago, no organization was providing any remuneration. But now there are a few organizations that are starting to provide a remuneration. And I'm sure that in the next years, there will be more and more organizations. But unfortunately, when it comes to the International Court of Justice, interns will have to find the funding for the internship, and they are responsible for meeting the immigration requirements, arranging travel and accommodation, and obtaining valid medical or accident insurance cover. Of course, we'll provide assistance in organizing this, but it will be your responsibility to arrange this. I know, and I know what it is because I was an unpaid intern. I know how difficult it is. And as one of the speakers mentioned at the beginning, you have to consider internship as an investment. You are investing in your future. So if you can save, or if you can get the assistance of someone to provide you with funding, it is actually something that could be necessary, but it is an investment because somehow it is like this that you can start, that you can put your foot in the system, and it is like this that after you could be more visible when there are some needs. So again, it is an issue and we are aware of that, but it is something that can pay off after that. After the internship, we will issue a certificate and we'll also provide, of course, an evaluation of the work done. And if you want to know about internship opportunities, it's simple. They are displayed, they are advertised on the website of the International Court of Justice. So you can see, this is on our website. It's a screenshot. Sorry, it's a screenshot. And you can see what are the vacancies. We have currently two, one for an intern with the archive division, and one is for a position of driver team assistant. So if you're interested for an internship, you just go on our website and you can find the necessary information, including the latest call for interns. The second option, if you want to be considered for working with the International Court of Justice, is called the Judicial Fellowship Program. It is to enable recent law graduates to gain experience. And what you might want to consider is that candidates are nominated and sponsored by the universities. So it is a program that is possible for universities, and you cannot apply directly to the International Court of Justice. You have to be nominated by your university. Your university has to express interest in this program. We have a number of universities, about 30, 35 universities all around the world, and they have expressed their desire to be part of this program. And it is possible for any university to be involved. However, they have to, of course, show interest, and they also have to commit to provide the funding to the individual, to the graduate that is selected by the International Court of Justice. The work is very interesting because it's to allow young graduates to be involved in the work of the court, to work under the supervision of a judge on some cases. And it is for a period of 10 months, from September to June or July of the following year. And usually the admission start in February. The admission cycle starts in February. So the next deadline for submission will be next February. And again, it is possible to find all this information on the website of the court. What the court is looking for is to have candidates who have excellent results in their law studies and who have studied, published, or worked in international law. And the court is also considering candidates from diverse nationalities. Also, the working languages are English and French, and we expect participants to have excellent reading, writing, and oral skills in at least one of these two languages. But if you have work knowledge of the second official language, this is a strong asset. And let me be concrete. We know what is the situation. We have people that apply for us. Most of them, they have a very good they speak English fluently. But what we also appreciate, what we value, is also candidates who can understand French, because it's also one of the working languages of the court. And this would be one piece of advice that I would share with you. Focus on your language skills, especially French, because many organizations work in these two languages, And you also have a lot of work opportunities, for instance, not only at the court, but with them, and in some countries like in Africa, where the work is only in French. And this could make a difference between you and another candidate. Let me get back to the Judicial Fellowship program. As I said earlier, each nominated university must agree to fund the stipend, health insurance, and travel cost of the candidate. So it's really a program which is open for your university. And you can talk with your university, and you can invite them to go on our website or to contact us so as to be considered for this program as well. Okay, so this was the second option. The third one is to be a law clerk to one of the judges of the International Court of Justice. Every year, we appoint a number of law clerks, and these law clerks, they provide research and other legal assistance to one of the judges with regard to the cases that are pending at the court. So when you are a law clerk, you work directly with one of the 15 judges. It's for 2 years, and it could be renewable for a second 2-year period. And in terms of qualification and skills, what we are looking for is people with an advanced university degree in law, with significant academic background in public international law or professional experience in the field. Postgraduate studies in public international law would be also an asset. And we also require 2 years of experience in the settlement of international legal dispute with an international organization, a government, or a law firm, or any private sector entity. This is important because this program is for graduates, for people who have some experience, professional experience. And again, in terms of language, we are looking for people who can work in one of these two knowledges, French and English, and have a good knowledge of the other one. And this is a key aspect as well. I can tell you, when I discuss with the judge, when we prepare the shortlist, we always look at the language skills of candidates. And the way to be considered is pretty simple. Again, you have to apply to the e-recruitment system of the course. So you go online, and we will request you to provide some information to support your application. For instance, a copy of your official academic record, GPA, mark awarded, ranking. So we, with the judges, we really look at your qualification and how well you did basically at school. And you should be prepared to demonstrate in a written exam and in the interview that you have expertise in different topics of public international law. So there is a selection process with a written test, with an interview. And after that, if you are successful, you could be appointed or you can be put on a reserve list. And after a few months, if there is a need for a law clerk, for one of the judges, you may be then appointed to work with him or with her. So this was the third option. And then let me finish by talking more generally about employment. So we have from time to time vacancies. We put them on the website of the court. And these vacancies is for professional or general service categories. I will not go too much into the detail. I don't want to take too much of your time, and these are very specific aspects. But basically, we have different categories of staff with different type of qualification, and we follow basically the approach of the United Nations General Assembly when it comes to how we classify our job, our positions. And we have position in the professional category. So basically, it means that you have international expertise in one specific aspect of the court's work. And in terms of requirements, the minimum is always described in each vacancy announcement. And generally, we ask for university degree, proficiency in English or French, and a good working knowledge of the other. While for the other type of positions, the one in the general service category, it's more for secretarial, clerical, text processing or accounting position. And the minimum requirement is lower. We only ask for a high school degree most of the time and some years of experience in addition to the language skills. So these are the usual requirements when we have some positions. They are advertised. We put what is needed, and then this is how you can submit your application.
Bonjour Faris, sorry for interrupting you. We would like to remind that you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Actually, I'm done, so it's fine now. Please, if you have any question, I will be more than happy to answer them. It could be a question about the International Court of Justice, but it could also be a question about the United Nations in general, career-related question, or question or tips. Question for tips. What you think could be important for someone who wants to work with the United Nations. Thanks again for your time, and let me know. It's a pleasure for me to respond to your question.
Well, very interesting presentation, Bonjour Faris. I see some law students here, so I believe that in the Q&A sessions at the end of the after the fourth speaker presents, there will be some question, I believe. And next up, we're entering the fourth session from the fourth speakers. She is Karina Ratna Murthy from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic Indonesia. Allow me to provide a brief background of Ms. Karina. Ms. Karina graduates from the University of Pajajaran or UNPAD with an Economics and Development Studies in 2008. Beforehand, she was also graduate in the International Relations degree from the same university. At the moment, she is the assistant of Deputy Director, Candidacy in International Organizations from 2009 to present. And before that, she was also an economic desk in Indonesian Embassy in Paris. And now she is the Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. So again, I would like to remind the participants that if any of you like to ask questions, kindly put it in the chat box and don't forget to indicate whom the questions are addressed to. And for the participants who's in the offline participants in Groningen right now, you can keep your questions and we will open the Q&A sessions after Ms. Karina presents her materials. So Ms. Karina, we also would like to remind that you have 10 minutes to present your materials. And now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. But it's been an honor for me to be invited here. But first of all, let me correct that I am not a deputy minister. I'm an assistant deputy director of Directorate of General of Multilateral Cooperation. Thank you. So good afternoon, His Excellency Ambassador Meyervas, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands, colleague at the embassy. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be invited here. Thank you again, moderator, for your brief introduction. Good afternoon, participants in the Netherlands, and good evening for participants in Indonesia. First of all, I would like to thank the embassy for arranging this webinar. And before I start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Karina Ratna Murthy, and I currently work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the Directorate General of Multilateral Cooperation. My scope of work in the ministry is managing Indonesia's membership on contribution in international organizations, including candidacies and job vacancies in various international organizations. So today I will share my very short presentation about working and internship and international organizations. So let me share my presentation. Just a moment. I think a mistake. Can you see my presentation? No, yeah. Just a moment. Okay, can you see my presentation? Please confirm. Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. It's just the presentation, right? Okay. So at glance, this is Indonesia's profile in international organization. Indonesia is a member of, just like Mr. Ambassador state that Indonesia is a member of 200 IOs, and we can generally divide it into four. The first one is in UN system. We are a member of 58 international organizations, such as the UN itself, ILO, and organs like ILO, WHO, IAEA, IMO, and UNICEF, and so on. And in ASEAN, we are member of 23 organizations, such as ASEAN itself, and the secretariat is in Jakarta, ASEAN Japan Center in Tokyo, ASEAN Korean Center, ASEAN China Center, and so on and so forth. And the third one is OIC system. It's Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We are members of 9 international organizations, among others as CES, RIG, ISESCO, and so on. We can see all the organization in the OIC in their website. And outside the 3 systems, there are 110 organizations such as IORA, WTO, APEC, and so on and so forth. So you can see that as a member of 200 organizations, we are paying a relatively big amount of government monies. So how to utilize it? We identify that other than the core objectives and our national interest in the organization itself, we can also have 3 utilization. First, in Indonesia's candidacy in international organization. By running in some election in the international organization, such as being a council member, governing bodies of the IO, but this is a very political and should be proposed and nominated by the government. For example, yesterday, Indonesia is just elected as governing body of ILO in election held in Geneva yesterday. Second, members of the organization can actively participate in the procurement processes. For example, Indonesia can always actively participate in UN procurement system. But in the meantime, today, we will focus on the third advantages, the job vacancies in the international organization. If you're wondering how many Indonesians are working around the world in the international organization, in my data, gathered from embassies around the world, as per December 2020, there are 732 Indonesian national works in the international organization, including those who works abroad and in the duty post in Indonesia. It is not included, it is outside the peacekeeping operation. So 732 is just people outside the PKO. So the question is, and just like Geneva said, Indonesia is not is currently not listed as underrepresented as per 2020. So the question is how exactly to work in international organizations. Just like I shared before, first, in the strategic level, such as the Director General, Deputy Director General, Secretary General, or even chair of the committee, it has to be nominated by the government through candidacy. So what is candidacy? The government basically rally for support from the member countries of an international organization when nominating an Indonesian national to fill a certain position at the international organization. This mechanism is mainly very political and mostly contested and require efforts in obtaining supports and votes. Second, secondment of experts. What is secondment? Secondment is fairly common among civil servants. They are assigned to certain IOs for limited time and mostly as part of capacity building and to enhance their understanding and expertise. But for students and professionals, open recruitment is the most suitable one. There are, of course, challenges faced by Indonesian applying in the jobs, just like fellows presenter before me. The challenges is mainly is the language barrier. For us, it's also working culture. So the language barrier and the working culture is challenges for Indonesian to work in the international organization. But how to overcome the challenges? Just like Geneva and just like Mr. Queen, you can join the voluntary work or internship and IO. Remember, but you have to really take notes that mostly in the UN internship is unpaid. Very few of the IO, it's what I remember is IFAD in Rome, if I'm not mistaken, it is paid, but the rest of it, I'm not sure. Second, be fluent in UN official language, not only English, but also any other official UN languages. Third, you have to actively search for vacancy in their own websites and HR platforms, such as for UN, you can go to UN career website or Inspira, or try searching vacancies that is in line with your field of study. That is from my point of view. So what is the ministry's role? In the context of building career in IO through open recruitment, the role of foreign ministry is mainly on how to mainstream the issues and to reach wider audience, to raise awareness about career opportunities in international organization. We have some initiatives. First, we have public outreach. Pre-COVID, we organized international workshop named International Organization for Your Future. It was held in Paris, Rome, Jeddah, and basically the cities where most of international organization secretariat are located. We are also facilitated together with the UN office in Jakarta, the UN Young Professional Program, UNYPP, in Geneva is batch 2017, but by 2020, Indonesia is not categorized as underrepresented. UNYPP is designed specifically for UN members in underrepresented category. So what else? We're trying to announce it at social media. You can follow our social media on Instagram, @satmulti_Kemlu. We also reach out to external stakeholders like universities and student association, just like Mr. Kinyo before us. Maybe we are also go to universities and we present some opportunities in working in international organization to introduce it to students. This is also the example of our social media postings. This is the vacancies in OIC, Jeddah, duty station Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So based on all data from embassies in Europe, per December 2020, there are several international organizations in Europe where Indonesian nationals working in, such as in IAAA, there are 16, in FAO, 96, UNESCO, we're not sure, but we don't have the data, but it's below 10. In IMO London, we have 1, WHO, and UNIDO, and etc. But this is the biggest. But maybe if from ICJ and OPCW have another data from if Indonesian national working in their organization, please do let me know. So that's all my presentation. I believe that working in IO provides a unique chance for us to expose the international settings where international norm setting multilateral contexts are set. So it will allow you to build capacity and understanding on issues at the heart of international cooperation and contribute its betterment to the interest of the world. So I will just end my presentation here. I hope the best for your future. Never give up, stay healthy, and thank you for having me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Karina, for the insights. And now we go to the Q&A sessions. I see that I see some face that want to ask questions from the offline participants. And okay, we'll try to answer 3 questions first from the offline participants and then going to the online participants.
Hi. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank you, of course, for the wonderful presentations. However, I do have several questions in this case. So my first question is directed to, of course, to any of the speakers. My question would be, when applying for this internship, what kind of skills do you guys, as the admission office, actually search for? Of course, we see in the website or the internet several requirements that we as students must fulfill. But what kinds of, let's say, you guys prefer, let's say, students who develop well soft skills, or let's say hard skills in some academics, or people who join, let's say, a lot of competitions and other organizations to develop their skills. So yeah, in that regard, what kind of skills do you guys properly search for? And the second question would be, of course, through the stages of the application process, we go from application to interview and to the examination. Out of these processes, at which stage is the most important stage for us, let's say, to be really admitted to this internship position? And I thank you for my question.
Yes, thank you. And to whom the questions are addressed to?
I would like to address my questions perhaps to the representative from the International Coordinator.
Please briefly introduce yourself and yeah, kindly present your questions.
First of all, thank you, Rachel, for the opportunity to ask the question. My name is John Johnson. I'm a student here of law at the University of Groningen. Thank you to all speakers for increasing my knowledge, little that I know of international organizations. I thought it was all fruitful. My question is addressed to the representative of the OPCW. I think it's Mr. Martin, if I'm not wrong. My first question is with regards to the status quo in increasing minorities that are underrepresented in international organizations, such as the Young Professional Program. And there's also an example from UK, the BAME, Black Asian Minorities Ethnic Stream, which increases the chances for those students in developing countries to join this international organization. And I would like to understand the stance that the OPCW has with regards to this. I know that the fellowship program in the ICJ holds diversity in high regard. I'm just curious what the OPCW considers. And then my next is a question of internship. For instance, I'm a legal student. What would be the day-to-day activities I would have in the OPCW with regards to law? Is it diplomacy, or is it like a spearhead for proliferating treaties of anti-chemical weapons? Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, thank you so much for all the informative presentations. I have 2 questions, one for Mr. Malai. What are some projects that you've had over the years, or current projects or future projects
that you guys are thinking of or have done that are helping eradicate with like chemical weapons? And the second question is for Mr. Farai. I think, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. But what are some previous conflicts or known conflicts that have been brought to the International Court of Justice that have been solved by the Court of Justice? Thank you.
There are a few questions, so I will try to see if I can summarize, but please feel free to add anything after that. But in terms of the skills, I think it was one of the first questions, in terms of skills and competencies, what we are looking for in terms of for internships. We are aware that interns are juniors, they have started their career, that they are freshly graduated from universities. So at this stage, of course, your expertise is academically based on academic knowledge. So we don't necessarily need to find people with excellent or strong hard skills. But what we need is to have people who are flexible. I think flexibility is very important. It's basically to come to an organization and to see what you can bring to this organization, is to see where your skills, your competencies, or what you know can be valuable for your team. And it's a relationship. It's what you give and what you receive. And it is important to be able for you to find your place in the team that is going to host you during that period, to welcome you. And we need people who have common sense, people who can think about a problem and propose solution, people who can be flexible to see what can be done differently, people who are innovative. And basically, for an internship to be successful is to bring something to the organization, and that it will make the organization feel bad to see you leaving. It's always this, you come, you work very hard, you assist, you support the team members, and then after that, we don't want to see you leaving, we want to keep you. And that's why after it's possible sometimes to get a short-term contract. And that's why also we mentioned that it's a good way to start to work with an international organization, because you're going to be meeting some needs, and that's the reason why people will want to keep you after your internship.
Okay, thanks for the question. There was a question on the status quo in underrepresentation and what is the OPCW doing about that. It is true that we've seen over the years that this has been an increasing, well, not an increasing, but it is an issue in terms of finding people from, let's say, developing countries, if I can call it that way, politically incorrect, I know, perhaps. There are things underway, there are discussions ongoing right now to see if we can offer more sponsorship to easier accessible students coming from either the EU or the United States or Australia, for instance. So there's really work underway there. In terms of internships, we do offer what we call a stipend. It's 450 euros per month, so it's really a minimum sort of amount. You can't really call it that you're fully sponsored, but that's for everybody. So work is underway there. In terms of an internship within the legal office, if I understood it correctly, typically the legal office really likes to have their interns work on all different cases. The legal advisor once said to me, well, I get my fresh ideas from some of the interns because they come up with maybe new and innovative solutions or a fresh look at some certain cases. The cases that you would be working on could just be, administrative law, but it can also be law related to the treaty. So that can be quite broad, but that then also depends on your own background, what the area that you've been studying within that. The other question from the lady was the projects that we are doing in order to keep the world safe. Let me paraphrase that. Of course, there is the Chemical Weapons Convention. So I think the work that we do is really to uphold it and make sure it's carried out. The question what I also raised in my presentation of universality is still remains, you could say, an agenda item for us to get all the countries on board. At the moment, there's only 3 countries outstanding that have not ratified the convention as such. So we really try to do that. I think one important element, though, is really the outreach programs that we do. So promote the peaceful use of chemistry, create awareness about what it really means that we do. I mean, everybody kind of generally is convinced that the use of weapons of mass destruction is something that we do not want. But there's still a lot of work to do to see, okay, how can we promote the peaceful use of chemistry? How can we help people set up their chemical industry to ensure, for instance, that no waste product is created that could potentially lead to a chemical weapon? So yeah, that's roughly the work that we're trying to achieve. Thanks.
Okay. Is every questions has been answered sufficiently? Okay, and now moving forward to the online participants, we see someone is raising her hand. Okay, Izara Victorino, can you hear me?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Okay.
so yeah, you can ask your questions and don't forget to address to whom the question you address to, and then the ones who should answer the questions can start to answer the questions. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you for all the speakers for the information that you have been shared to us. And I would like to address the questions to the OPCW. So I'm an international relations student in Leiden University. And so I would like to have an internship in OPCW actually this summer, but I somehow couldn't find the link to apply. So, and I also checked the website. It's not a specific job that posted in the website, because I think for the professional opportunity, there is like a specific job that you can click link to apply, but somehow I couldn't find it for the internship. So my question is, internship work as like general position that you all gather all the candidates and then you just disperse the CV or the resume to the related departments. And the second question is, as a head of talent acquisition, like, do you have, could you please share to us tips of what to put and not to put in the motivation letter? Like when you read the letter, oh, okay, this is the candidate that we are looking for based on the motivation letter. And also the last would be, what is the organization expectation from the intern? That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question, Izura. Yes, in terms of the internship application, so sorry to hear that you couldn't find it. Basically, what we do is we publish our internships twice a year. So for the internship period in the summer and in the winter. So typically for the summer, it's published around February. Going into March, usually for about 2 months. And then for the winter, it's published September, October. So it is a specific vacancy notice that goes out for that. So I'm sorry if you've missed that one. In terms of what to put in your cover letter, that's an interesting question. Typically, yeah, I think what is important is that you really showcase why you're motivated to do this. And I don't necessarily mean motivation, of course, people say I feel about, I care about the mandate of the organization and stuff like that, but it's more in relation to maybe your studies, maybe what you've been doing within your studies, projects that you've done, sometimes other internships, but not necessarily. So what elements there are of importance to the area that you are trying to apply for to have an internship in? Because within the OPCW, we are very specific about, that you need to let us know which area you are applying for in terms of your internship. So I think that needs to be very clear and sort of showcasing how that, what you've been doing and your education relates to what you want to do. And with interns, it's sometimes a little bit different, I guess, than with applying for a job, that you try to put a little bit more emphasis on the motivational part, in the sense, maybe personal skills that come to mind that are important to you, that you may be able to relate to stuff that you've been doing, more so than when people apply for, they've had a longer career and they can refer to more jobs that they've been doing. Because fairly often that is a complaint that people have. Well, I haven't been doing so much, so how can I sort of get that across? I think you had a third question, which I sort of missed now. Would you mind asking that again?
Yes, the third question is more like, what is the OPCW expectation, like from the organization itself, from the intern? So when you hire intern, like what is your expectation?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry for that. Well, I think it's a little bit to what Faris has also been saying. I think we really try to get, it's great to have young people on board that have maybe a new take on things and try to bring new things to the organization. We really like to see people that are dedicated and that are really motivated to make a difference, that are quite inquisitive, so that they try to learn and adapt quickly what's going on, but bring, as I said, fresh ideas into the organization. So that's an element that we really, I think, value, as I said about the LAO, the legal internships, LAO being the acronym for the division. They really try to see, okay, there might be different ways of thinking than people that have been working in the place for a bit longer. So sometimes you get a bit still in your ideas, so that can be very, very helpful. For me personally speaking, when we have an intern within HR, for instance, it's always great to have people that have maybe a different point of view, also because you're a different generation, if I may say so. So that sometimes brings other things to the table that we may have not thought about, or maybe I've heard about theoretically, but then becomes more alive, if you like. So that's also very helpful. So I think an important message is don't underestimate what with your studies and everything that you're bringing to the table, it can do for us. I think that can really make a difference. I hope that sort of answers your question. If not, then let me know. But we also have to be mindful of the time, I think. I don't want to get the moderator nervous here.
Yes, no worries. Yeah. So we still have some time for last questions from the offline audience. Does anyone want to ask some questions? Okay. Yes, to the lady in the front with the yellow shirt. Yes. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Magda, and I do have a question about the International Court of Justice. Does the International Court of Justice has some kind of open house programs where you show your organization and explain opportunities to work or taking internship in the International Court of Justice? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the question is about the open house in the International Court of Justice. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you for asking this very relevant question. Unfortunately, it's not the case. We don't have the resources to organize such events. We don't have enough people in the team to be able to be involved in such activity. That's why we provide information mainly on our website. And of course, whenever it is possible for us to attend an event such as the one organized today, it is with pleasure that we do so. Otherwise, what also is possible is to consider some remote or learning activities, presentation, but it's really on a case-by-case basis, depending on what is asked. We have participated to a number of career fairs, but it's really whenever we have the resources. Unfortunately, we cannot participate to all the events that we would wish to participate to. Thank you.
Thank you, Faris. And also, I have some questions from the WhatsApp group addressed to Ms. Karina, and I'll try to summarize the questions into one question. So, Mbak Karina, is there a role of Indonesian people working in the international organizations to further Indonesia's role in the multilateral world? This is the questions, and yes, please answer our questions, Mbak Karina. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. Just to confirm, is there any role of Indonesian? Sorry again.
Yeah, is there a role of Indonesian people who's currently working in the international organizations to further Indonesia's multilateral role?
Oh, yes. So in working in the international organization, we have to divide ourselves which one is being an Indonesian citizen and being a international civil servant. In working in international organization, we have the people working in the international organization should be objective. There are diplomats who are responsible in being in the voice of Indonesia. So if you are working in the international organization, you have to be objective because you are international civil servants. That's what I can answer. I hope you are satisfied with my answer.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of room for Indonesian people in working in the international organizations, and so surprisingly, we still have some slightly time before the closing, and I'd like to open one slot to one more questions. Okay, yeah, you, the one with the blue shirts. Please briefly introduce yourself, and you can ask the questions and address to whom the questions are.
Okay, hello speakers. My name is Eileen Chan. I'm an international business student in the University of Groningen, and I would like to address this question to Mr. Merline about the internship program. So as an international business student, I would like to ask if there are any vacancies for internship for international business students in particular, especially in regards to relations to corporations. And for the internship program, is it project-based or is there a valid tenure date for the internship? And also for the junior the JPO program, if I'm not mistaken, does it need a minimum 2 years of work experience, or is the tenure time 2 years? And for the last question is, and after we are admitted, how is the career path in Opcw? So yes, in total there are 3 questions. Feel free to answer them however you would like. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that question, or those questions, I have to say. Yeah, so from your background, interesting. I would say, yes, there are definitely opportunities. I somehow would maybe sound a bit old, it place it either within the External Relations Division or within the International Corporations and Assistance Division, where I think certain development programs could actually benefit from your background in terms of your business skills. But I would, if I'm really honest, I would have to see a little bit more, the resume, how that would fit in. It's not a typical background that we normally hire for, but that's why I actually find it quite interesting. In terms of the internships, yeah, the duration is usually up to half a year. Sometimes it can be extended to a year. That's the maximum, by the way. Unlike, and I wish I could say we do the same as Faris does. However, the OPCW has restricted moving interns straight into employment. That used to be the case for a while, but at one point it's been decided that they need at least half a year break in service before they can apply to a role in the technical secretariat. The junior professional officers, yes, you do need 2 years of experience. I wasn't quite sure exactly where you wanted to go with the question. I know that you have to walk to the mic, but maybe you want to elaborate on that. And while you do that, yeah, so I addressed the career path. I mean, it does help if you've done an intern. The internship with the OPCW, when you might apply, the downside is, and I know this sounds a bit quirky, but you have to sort of have a break in service, so maybe get some other experience and then come back to the organization.
Okay, so to clarify, I need to have 2 years of experience in order to be eligible for the JDL program?
No, it's 2 years. So 2 years of relevant working experience. Yes, that's correct.
Does relevant working experience also constitutes to, for example, working in a corporation, which is not related to non-governmental activities?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, just to clarify. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so it has been really interesting discussions and very informative. Unfortunately, we have running out of time, really. Once again, I would like to appreciate all the speakers who come on the online platforms and share with us, and also for every participants from the Zoom platform and also offline participants who come to this place and contribute to these events. With this, I close the discussions and I give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony, Ellen. Thank you.
So we have reached the end of our session today. I would like to once again thank you for the speakers and the participants for availing yourself of your busy schedule to be here today. And I would like to apologize on behalf of the committee if there are any words that we say in the wrong manner and have inflicted some discomfort in the participants or the speakers. So once again, thank you very much for being here. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you very much. My name is Damayanti.